State San Marcos, and she has a BS in business administration, and she emphasized accounting. So she's really into the accounting and working all her numbers. She worked, I can't believe you did this for how many years?
Oh, 5 years.
5 years she worked for a distressed property management company. So that's distressed properties, kind of like the problem I had in Michigan, a lot of distressed properties, problems with the tenants, things like that. So God bless you.
You see, I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. And she's been in the real estate industry for 14 years. You have a real estate license, right? As a broker or agent? Agent, awesome. And she's invested in single family, notes, and she loves apartments. I would say right now about 75% of the investments that she and her partners make, they're all in apartments. So she's kind of all in and becoming an expert in that area. So Kim Nguyen, come on up and take it away. I'm going to pull up your
Good evening,
slides.
everybody.
Good evening.
There you go. Full screen.
Oh gosh, she gave me such a big introduction. I don't know what to say now. I wanted to just take a poll. How many of you have at least have done at least 5 transaction, real estate transaction? At least.
At least
Okay.
5.
At least 15?
Oh.
More than 15? Okay, Desi, can you come and teach? Corey? Anyway, so I'm gonna skip the introduction because she did that already. So the topic that we'll be discussing about will be the 5 compelling reasons why investing in an apartment is a smart move. Actually, I have more single family experience. I actually get into the commercial multifamily just in the last 3 years after I have delved into the reasons that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. Okay, so before I share that, I'm going to show you an interesting fact. You probably wonder what that is. I put that. How many of you have heard of the boat people in the 80s?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm one of those boat people in the 80s. So that time, a lot of people from Southeast Asia flee the country. So I was on one of those boats. Because the funny thing was, I was working and there was a coworker that asked me, "How did I get here?" I said, "By boat." And he looked at me and was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "By boat." Exactly what I said. So anyways, that's the story. So you can't see me, but this is me, my brothers. So my dad left the country in 1982. He left my mom with 4 kids, okay? Because he was looking for political freedom. So he left my mom. So that time I was 8 years old. So I have 8, 6, 4, and a 2-month-old brother. So every time I look at my brother, this is 2 now. This picture was taken in the Philippines. I was there for 6 months. But every time I look at him, I'm like, you're really lucky to be alive, because when my dad left, I was the nanny, basically the nanny. My brother and I locked the 4-year-old and the 2-month-old at home so we go to school, okay, for 2 years, 2 months. If people hear that, it's a child use, honestly, that's what we had to deal with, So every time I look at him, I was like, you're so lucky, because anything can happen to you, but he's 37 now, So funny. It's like, so that's a little bit of the story. And honestly, everything I'm doing right now, I'm doing because I'm looking for creating passive income for my family. My parents, my dad's turning 70, my mom is in her mid-60s. They actually don't have the retirement that they would need by the time, well, they're supposed to be retired now, but they're still working. So I, as far as real estate, Jenna was telling, I actually was working in a traditional corporate environment. I didn't like it because I didn't want somebody to cap my income, and plus I'm more entrepreneur, because when I was 8 years old, I would start selling already to support my family. So I start selling, goodies, this and that. So so when I left my accounting job, I was looking for something, and I ended up with real estate. And I've been in real estate for 14 years. I started owning my first house as a way of getting into real estate. But I realized that I don't want to do sales, so I gravitate toward more the investment arena. Okay, so that's why I'm here today, and I'm fortunate because I met a lot of, just like you guys here. I went to an event and I meet up with my business partner. I worked with him for over 10 years, and he's already in the multifamily arena. I just gravitate towards that, and that's how I'm here today. So, without further ado, I'm gonna get started. So, how many of you heard? How many of you know of what is a syndication? Oh, that's good. Okay, so what is a syndication?
Getting people together, pool their money, and buy real estate.
Okay, how many have you heard of apartment is the way to go? That's a buzzword, right? Wherever you go right now, they always talk about apartment syndication, okay? And the reason why syndication is because you're able to leverage other people and pull the funds to invest, okay? So that's why multifamily and syndication is a really hot topic, and it's a buzzword. Everywhere you go, it seems like that's what you're talking about, especially now that the wholesaling and the flipping business is kind of like slowed down, okay? So the first compelling reason why I looked into multifamily investment was easy management. Okay, can you guys imagine having 50 properties or 100 properties in a local area that you have to manage all over? How easy is that? You have to have like a mini army, right? Okay, imagine if you have 150 units in one location. Okay. Ideally, I like to own at least 50 units, but if I can't, then what I would like to do is own multiple smaller units in one area, because it's economy of scales. Okay, it's easier to manage. You have less of you may need like one property manager, maybe an assistant, and a maintenance person. Okay, so that's the reason why I think that's reason number one. It's easier management. Okay, compare reason number two. Okay, it's easier to raise rent value compared to single family. So on a single family, how do you guys raise value?
Competition.
Repairs, right?
Added square footage.
Add square footage. Okay, add appliances. So you can increase, but it's limited, right? You can only do one, right? In a multifamily, you can do multiple ones, and you can scale up. So you can go faster, go bigger, and there's bigger profits. Okay, so some of the things that you can do in this multifamily. I'm gonna make sure. Okay, so what you can do to increase value in multifamily, you can do the same as single family, but you can add a laundry room, right? You can hire an effective property management company to manage the property. You can improve the marketing plan, okay, to attract more tenants. You can implement tenant retention program, okay. You can also implement referral program in order to keep your units full. You can increase rent. You can also, tweak your policy and procedures so that you can increase rent. And
Parking?
then,
Like parking?
yeah, that's one. And then you can add a swimming pool, a playground, a dog park. Okay, you can also I visit one of this apartment, and what they have is a trash out service. They charge $30. You don't have to bring the trash. You just put it at the door, and they bring in the trash for you, and they add to your tab at $30 a month. And guess what? Everybody do that. Okay, so every time, on the things that you do like this, it increases the value of your property. What it does is increase net income. Okay, when you increase net income, you increase the value of the property. Okay, and so there's more ways to do that in multifamily versus a single family. Okay, so I kind of went out. We make repairs, spruce, vending machines,
Mm.
I did that already.
Okay, so reason number 3 is tax benefit. Just this one reason alone, it's almost like no-brainer for you to get involved in multifamily, right? So examples of tax benefit would be city offered tax breaks for offering, for instance, energy efficient windows. When I was in Sacramento, I had a 4-plex. I had all the window replaced. It didn't cost me a dime because it was subsidized by PG&E. Okay, so those are our tax benefits. And then we have federal government offers tax incentives to many areas operators. Okay, for instance, if you have your unit rent to a low-income family, you may get X amount of dollars credit. Okay, and then they also have tax abatement. So tax abatement is basically, it's usually what happens is when the market, in the down market, where a lot of people have flee and where companies' employment has gone down. So the tax abatement is enticing companies to come in to start a business so that they can attract more people. Okay, an example of that is in St. Louis. We bought a building. Okay, we have a tax abatement for 10 years. That's property tax. For 10 years, we don't have to pay property tax on that specific building. Okay, and then another example, and this is not a political. I'm not for or against Trump, but there is an example where Trump bought the Commodore in the 70s, and he has tax abatement for 40 years. Okay, so that's talking about tax abatement. That's what it is. Okay, and then in addition to that, all the closing costs, point interest that you incur on this transaction, it's a tax write-off. Okay, and then the biggie is depreciation, right? So the way we set up our syndication is we get a month. You get a monthly distribution or quarterly distribution. You get a receive cash, right? But then you also get just depreciation. So when you net the two together, sometimes you really don't have to pay any taxes at all. Because the reason why is we set you up as an owner, and so as an owner, you get the tax depreciation rate off, okay? And then another one is out there is called accelerated depreciation. So you gotta pay for them to go in to look at certain assets in the building, that instead of depreciate it in 10 years, you can do it 5 years, okay? 7 years. So you accelerate that. So there's more write-off for you, okay? Okay, so the next one we want to talk about is multifamily holds their value. So now, once after you stabilize the building, right? This means you're like 90 or 100% occupied. The way that you want to make sure that it holds value is you need to make sure you have a very, very good property manager to take over, to manage and take charge of the property. Okay, and you should have good policies for repair maintenance too. And so that's how it holds value. And that's the reason why you see a lot of people hold multifamily loan in the long term. Okay. And now reason number 5, there are many reasons why we feel that that we become a renter's nation. Okay, does anybody agree with that?
Yeah, it's starting to look like it.
Yeah, and so if you look at since 2005, the average of 804,000 new rental household per year have created, compared to 70,000 in 1990. So that's over 100, almost close to 150,000 more now than before, right? So home ownership is definitely declined, right? So what are the drivers? Why are we seeing the shift? Okay, millennials. How many of you believe that millennials is the driving force? Okay, first of all, I was talking to somebody who says that her son is living in an apartment, have one of everything. He doesn't want to have so many. He doesn't even have a couch. He just have a one chair. Okay, they go minimalist. Okay, and I talked to somebody. He said his daughter is like she works every 3 months, and every 3 months she take off to the mountain wherever. So they're living really minimal life. They don't want to be bogged down. So those are by choice. But there's also millennials that are forced to go to choose that route too. Okay, so there are 80 million millennials choosing or being forced to rent. Okay, so first of all, talk about young millennials. We talk about 18 to 24. Okay, they have less than 1,000 in savings, and 31% of them have no money at all. Okay. And then older millennials are 25 to 36. Okay, there's 67% of them have less than 1,000 in savings, and then 33% have zeros in savings. Okay, and another thing that
Wait, that's 100% of them all. So you say not one millennial has more than $1,000 in savings?
I don't know. This is statistic.
Wow, interesting.
This is statistic. Okay. Another reason why they can't afford to buy is because of student loan debt, right? So we have mortgage debt. Mortgage debt is one of the highest, right? Well, student loans right after that is $1.5 trillion.
It never goes away.
Yeah, 11% of them are in default. So what happened when in default? Their credit's bad. Okay, if you don't have the down payment and your credit's bad, shop. There's no way you can buy, right? Yeah, and plus we live in San Diego. How many people can afford to buy anymore, right? Okay, so those are the ones that's being forced. So that's one end, and we're talking about people who choose to do that way, to live, to rent. Okay, I've talked to a few. Some of them are they move from job to job. Okay, they like to live in a complex because there's certain things in there, okay, in amenities in the property. So there's a love of amenities. They love community. Okay, they don't like to drive. Some of them just take Lyft or Uber because I've seen them too. They just call Lyft and they just go pick them up. So they live somewhere that's close to everything else. And let them go. And then they love community. They love flexibility. Okay, they're 3 times more likely to move jobs than somebody that's older. Okay, and they love convenience. Okay, they don't wanna go very far to get something. They just want it there. Okay, so those are the people that millennials that would like to. That's a choice. They want to rent. And then, interestingly, we think that millennials are the big driving force, right? Well, baby boomers are also a driving factor too. So 77 million are flocking to rental. Okay. Now, are they doing it because they have to, or are they doing it because they want to? Well, first of all, a lot of boomers are retiring. Kids move out, college, so they want to downsize. They don't need the big house anymore, right? So they downsize. So some of them are doing it because they want to, they have to, and some of them are doing it because they want to. So families and married couples between age of 45 to 64 accounted for about twice the share of the renter growth as a household under age 35. And this was a report from Housing Studies at Harvard University. Okay. So we talk about millennials as one driving force, baby boomers as another driving force, right? This one we talk about immigrations. We have heard about how they're putting a lot of immigration laws into effect, but the reality, according to Pew Research, they're predicted by 2065 that immigrant population will reach up to 78 million, okay? And then it's up from 45 million. So about 60%, I have some stats, 60% but 50% of immigrants are renting. Okay, and then 75% of them are under the age of 35. So even doesn't matter what we hear out there, immigrations is still a big thing, and they're probably the third driving factor on why we're becoming more of a renter's nation. Okay. Okay. So this is actually a bonus, okay, because I just finished a 5, but this is bonus. And also, when we go in a market and we start researching and acquire, we do a stress test. What it means is, if we're gonna buy, and if this specific assets, what is it performing at the worst time? Okay, so if you look at this, this is a serious delinquency rate for single family. I don't know if you guys can hear it, can see that. Okay, so at the peak, this is single family. We're looking at between 9 to 10%. Okay, and this is in 2009. Yeah, 2009. So we know that for every percent move up and down is over 1 million household. Okay, so that's how we stress test an asset. Okay, so if you look at, let me see. Okay, so if you look at versus, this is commercial multifamily. Okay, so at the peak, you're looking right here. It's 0.8%, and this is in 2010. Okay, single family at the peak was close to 10. At the peak for multifamily was close to 1%. Okay, so if you're looking at, you don't see a lot, or you don't hear a lot about multifamily foreclosures, right? And you don't hear, the reason why is because most of them have been worked out, or because of this. Okay, you don't see a lot of foreclosures in multifamily. It's really rare. I've actually known a few people who did a modification. They modified the loan, but never foreclosed on the loan. The lender won't foreclose. So when we wanted to compare, okay, on which asset we want to invest in, this is what we want to compare to. And so we know that it's heavily, delinquency is a much less. It's much more stable in the space. Okay, so the next thing we're talking about is what is keeping a lot of people out of the commercial multifamily? What are some obstacles that people are facing? Why, even though they know that there may be all these good reasons to get themselves into, but why are they not able to jump in? Anybody take a guess?
Down payment is higher.
Yes.
It's 20% or
It's
plus.
down payment is about 20 to 30%, 35%. It depends, and you're talking about multi-million dollars, right? Versus a couple $100,000. So the barrier of entry is lower, okay? So first down payment, okay, and then on top of coming up with the down payment, right? You have to have rehabs, okay, repairs and rehabs, okay, and that could add more to it, okay. And then on top of that, you got to pay for all the due diligence reports. That could cost thousands of dollars just in doing that. Okay. And then there's closing costs that's involved. If on a loan, 2 or 3% plus all the surveys, all the stuff, that can add up too. Okay. And then this is a big one. Lenders requires repair. Okay. So we're fortunate, some of our properties we don't have to do lenders requires repair. But if we have to do it, we have to fix it before we can even close it. Okay. Actually, the last one we closed, the lender wouldn't close at the 9th hour because there was a survey that they wanted that they didn't request sooner. Okay, so we couldn't get that done, close on time because they wanted the survey. Okay, so there's a lot of things. You gotta look. And then, so let me ask you a question is, do you think getting a loan on a single family is easier or multifamily is easier? You think?
Single.
Okay.
Depends from who.
That's the right answer.
Yeah. Well, even though on a commercial multifamily lender, right? They said, oh, they don't look at the person so much; they look at the income it's producing, right? But the reality is, they're looking for experience and track record. So if you don't have the experience or track record, the chance of you getting a loan is very slim to none. Okay, so you got to build that up. Okay, and then they really have to see your personal financial statements, and you have to have reserves. In order, whatever the reserve is, you have to have 10%. Whatever the asset is, you got to do 10% as a reserve. Okay, so that's reserve, and they want to see your tax return. Even though they said they don't base your income, but they still want to look at your tax return. Okay, and then they still consider FICO score, your credit score, right? And then they look at your history of bankruptcies or history of foreclosures on your record. Okay, so so on a lender's package, it's over 200 pages, this thick. When you complete one loan, okay. Well, I think a single family is probably half that.
5.
Yeah. No, I think it's 4. But when people compare that way, I actually think that it's not true. As the multifamily is, there is more weighted in experience, and then reserves. Okay. So how can a person get involved in doing multifamily investment if those are the requirements and they can't get in? There's an entry barrier, right? So the things is, you have to find somebody that have a track record, have done what you have done, and you work with them, and then build yourself up over time. And in order for you to start going, if you decide to be passive or you want to be active, then that's when you start jumping in the game. But that's the way for you to get in the game versus putting in millions of dollars to get into commercial multifamily. Okay. And then I think that's it. I just want to see if you guys have any questions.
Where are your assets? Where are you building your portfolio?
We have 2 locations. One is in St. Louis, well, 3. St. Louis, Missouri, and then Kansas City, Missouri, and Fresno, California. Fresno market is actually very new for us because at one point we were not in California because it doesn't make sense, it doesn't cash flow. But that is a market that we heavily involved now because it's one of the lowest market in California. The rent is still very low. Now in Fresno, we pegged it as an emerging market. There are criteria that it kind of falls in for us to peg it to be emergent because to be considered emergent is you have to have job growth, population growth. You have to have government that stimulate or promote companies moving in so that they can do that. So in Fresno, they have Amazon. Okay, it produces about 2,500 jobs a year. Okay, we have Ulta Beauty, maybe 500 to 1,000. Okay, it has, because of that, they have Gap, and then FedEx ground, UPS ground, and then an interesting fact is they have a tech incubator starting in Fresno. They bought 5 buildings already. The founders are from San Francisco. So they come and they buy these buildings, old buildings, they fix it up, and they hub either you can have a startup company, you can do rent in there, and then they have programs where they can teach people how to code, how to do all these technologies. Their goal is 250,000 jobs. Okay, so I actually think that's a little bit outlandish, but it is taking just 10% of that. Okay, if you can do 10% of that, turns to mini Silicon Valley. We actually have a bus tour coming up in June 8th, where we actually showcase people, the area, what's going on. Why we pick is an emerging market, and show you some of the projects that we do, and just to kind of, it's really educational. It's from 10 a.m. to 5. The tour itself is free because being sponsored, you have to get yourself there, and then you have to pay however you need to get there for accommodation and food. But the tour itself is free. It's very educational. We have people that went, and everybody. So let me ask you guys, what did you guys think when I say Fresno? Farmland, boonies, right? At one point, their unemployment rate was 20%, right? Now the unemployment rate is at 5%, and it's steady. Yeah, and
When's your bus tour?
June 8th.
How many people are a part of is it a syndication? That
It depends on the projects. Each project varies in size and vary amount that we need the funds for. So I don't have, I have a lot of investors, but each project is different. So we just closed 8 units. We have 5 units in line. We have 15 units that we flipping, wholesaling. We have 15 units in negotiation. We just in contract to sell 40 units that we acquired about 3 months ago. So every project is different. It's not one, what's that way.
Is the income that you derive from the investment proportional to how much you put in?
So how we come up with what to get, how we analyze and how we figure our underwriting criteria. Okay, so the way we analyze is cash flow. It depends on the project. On smaller projects, there may not be cash flow because on a smaller project, what we do is we rehab, and then we increase rent and we flip. Okay, we flip it and then get the money and do something else. On a bigger project, long-term hold. Okay, that's 3 to 5 years. And ideally, is we want to look to give our investor 15 to 25% return annually. So there are 2 components to come up with that. First is the cash on cash, and the second is the equity. So the cash on cash is typically, it used to be 8% or higher, but because the market it's very competitive, we cannot deliver 8% and above anymore. It's probably about 6 to 10%. And then the other component is when we sell, the profit share. So you add the cash on cash return, okay, plus the profit share equals to the 15 to 25%.
Divided by the amount of equity you put into.
It's per share, so it's
Per share.
Yeah, it's still at it.
Okay.
Whatever. So the way we work is 25,000 per share, minimum 2 shares. Okay, so that 2 share you average out is in that 15 to 25%. Yeah.
Do you have an exit strategy or planning on holding it forever?
We do have an exit strategy because it's hard to tell the investor that we buying this and hold this forever.
Right.
So
But can you burr out of it in that case?
what do you mean?
Individual.
Buy, rehab, rent, refinance.
We can if that makes sense. So sometimes investor needs an exit. They need to know and definitely date that. Okay, but if that changes, then we can refinance, give them the cash back, and still be in the deal. Yes, but before we roll out the project, we already have an exit plan already, and only if we cannot follow the exit plan, then we go to alternative option exit plan number 2.
So then is the exit plan a time plan? And what is that expectation for Fresno? Because I'm curious, because when I hear Fresno. So
That's where you gotta go. Okay, so we haven't found a long-term project that makes sense yet.
Sure.
Okay, so there's no long-term projects because it's number driven. Okay, and it has a cash flow. So right now our projects in Fresno are short-term projects, 2 to 3 years. 1 to 2 years, depending on how big the project is. Okay, if it's a 4 or 5 units, that within 6 months to a year. But then the 40 unit was a lucky one. We looking to exit anytime in between to get the investor the return that we touted anyway. Okay, so the 40 units that we have in escrow, we closed in February. We sold, it's in contract right now, and it's be closing June. Okay, so that's what 3 months. But not every project is the same way. It just depends on what happens in between. Yeah, we don't, because we know we're not going to hold. So if there's a buyer that's willing come to pay for what we want, we'll just exit out and just give return to investors.
What you gonna do if market fall?
If the market falls, then we hold, because the way we hold. Okay, so interesting stats in Fresno is Section 8 rent is higher than market rent. So we're looking to put Section 8 tenant in there. Section 8 cover 80 to 90% of the rent. So worst case scenario, if the market crash, okay, our rent is buffer by Section 8.
So
It will affect, but it's buffer.
So are you gonna expect the same returns, like 15% after all? Let's say if you keep the property for, let's say, 3 more years and then sell it, are you looking into like altogether about like 15% of return? Case on case?
It's case on case, but that is one of the metrics that we're looking at too. Worst case scenario is if we hold for X amount of years, what can we deliver to the investor? We also look at that too. Yeah. We also look at that too.
Did you say all your markets are Section 8 or just the Fresno market?
Fresno market, because the Section 8 rent is higher than market rent.
And what are your attractions to Kansas City?
I have a business partner there. We actually looking at 135 units there in Kansas City. This specific property is next to a pharmaceutical company. Okay, so they're expecting 17,000 jobs growth in that area. So it's in that proximity. It's in negotiation, but nothing has panned yet. Nothing has panned out yet because that property is in distress and the seller has lots of issues, so they have to hash it out yet. But we like it because when we look to buy, those are the things we look at. Is there potential? It's like emergent, we wanted to go in that have some drivers that help identify it as an emerging market. Yeah.
Kim, can you tell us about the shares again? If people want to invest, how do they do that?
Usually, different projects will be different. It's usually we break into, each share is 25,000, minimum to 2 shares. So on the 5 unit, we don't have minimum because only 3 shares. The share is 30,000. So it's different for each one of them. Yeah, it's not like locked in where we have it formulate for every one of them the same. It's
And the
flexible.
reason you're able to sell soon on some of them is you're adding value by remodeling?
Yes,
Or
we are.
bringing up the occupancy, right?
Yeah, yes. So usually what happens is the rent, so the 5 units, the rent is a 550, right? The market rent or the Section 8 rent is 800 to 850. Okay? So the way our partner does it is the first day we close, he goes in, he does a renovation outside first. If it's vacant, he works on the inside. If it's not, he works outside. Then he gives notice to everybody. 60 days notice, increase rent. Okay? So once the rent's increased, he doesn't lock them in a contract. Another 60 days, he does another increase to reach to the level that we need to.
Pretty fast.
Yeah.
Is this something that can be 1031 exchanged?
Yes, there is a way you have to do that. Yeah, there is a way. It's called TIC. It's called a TIC, tenant in common.
What's the percentage that the investors get in equity versus the operators?
It depends, because everything we drive by investors' return. So if it's 15 to 25%, that return could be 50% equity, 60% equity, 70% equity.
Can you give a real numbers example of what you're
Okay,
talking about?
so our last project is a 40 units, okay? There is no cash flow, okay? There is only on the profit share, okay? So the way it works is the average annual return in the 1.5 to 2 years exit out is, I believe, 30%, 25-30%. Okay, so based on that, we determine that the equity split is 50-50.
So you wait until your exit to determine who gets what piece of the pie?
No, that is already predetermined. When you get in the game, you already know your equity portion already.
Okay, so when you go into acquisition, because you have a proposed exit,
Yes.
that's when you figure out your
Yes.
waterfall and the cap table.
We don't do the waterfalls complex. We just do based on the 10 or 15%, and then some area we do prefer, some we don't do prefer. Okay, and then based on that, we just say, okay, like for the project we did on a 47 units in St. Charles, Missouri, the investor gets 60%. Okay, on the 40 units in Fresno, the investor gets 50%. But regardless, their return is still in that range.
Are you still in St. Charles?
Am I still in St. Charles?
St. Charles, Missouri?
Yeah, we have a project there. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
So if there's ever a need for additional upgrades for rehabilitation, with the investor, is there a cash call provision?
We haven't done a cash call for a while.
But I mean, I understand that.
Well, how we do that is we do full cash flow. If there's additional upgrade, we factor it in the cash flow. We don't do, we try not to stay away from cash call. And we have buffer too. We have reserves. Yeah. You know, nobody likes to get a cash call. You know that? No, it's like, would you like it? Somebody say, hey, we need to get $25,000 from you. Nobody likes a cash call, so we try to prevent that and kind of set reserves, and we make sure that the rent collect in order to do the additional upgrades. Yeah, but we buffer them. We make sure we buffer. It's not always 100% science, math, where it works out evenly, but we haven't had to do a cash call. Yeah. Yes?
So Kim, just make sure I got this right. You're keeping the investor return, like you'll say, you'll tell the investor 10 to 15 or 13%,
Mhm.
and then you adjust the equity the investors have so that it comes out to the 13%, right?
Yes. No, we project.
I don't mean to adjust it during the project, but you adjust it when they buy into it. They know they have 40% equity, and their return will be cash flow plus equity
Mhm.
will equal 15 or 10.
Yeah. So how we do on a short-term project is you can actually make more because the timeline that we peg is what, 1.5 to 3 years. But if we exit before that, your return is higher, right? You still get 50%, but your return is higher. If we exit closer to the timeline that we peg, then your return is as what we projected at. Yeah.
Right, like you wouldn't exit early unless it was a good deal, right?
We wouldn't exit if we couldn't get the invested return that we pay. Yeah, we have to factor all that in before we exit. Yeah. So on the 40 units, right?
Okay.
If I'm gonna go off my head because I'm still crunching the numbers, the return is 10%, but we were in it for 3 months. So multiply that by 4. If you do it by 4, right?
For yearly, it's a good.
Yes,
good
as an
return.
annual return. If you look at an annual return, you're looking at over 30%.
How do you determine what you're going to give your credit partners versus your cash partners?
We haven't had to implement the credit partner yet, but there is a specific formula we give the credit partner. Okay, that, and then let me rephrase. The credit partner comes from our portion, from the GP portion. Okay, it doesn't affect the investor portion at all. Okay, so just to answer your question. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the bus tour? Because I actually put the link up there.
Okay, so the reason why I had the bus tour there is because when I start saying I'm investing in Fresno, everybody looked at me like, "Are you crazy? Where's Fresno? Nobody would know where Fresno. Why would you want to go in Fresno?" But like I said, we pegged us as an emerging market. So we doing the bus tour is really an educational event to share with the investor what Fresno is all about, why we think is an emerging market, and the projects that we worked on, and then the projects that we have coming. So basically just more of educational. It starts, so you need to drive, fly to get there, okay? We have a location, a hotel, and then the bus will pick everybody up at that time. Then we're gonna drive to see projects, to see the area, and then the whole time, nonstop, everybody's asking a lot of questions. We have, the last bus tour we had 2 locals. They don't even know that it's an emerging market. They're investing in Texas. Okay?
And they're from Fresno.
Yeah, they're from Fresno. They're invested in Texas, okay? And so they're like, "Oh, I didn't even know that it is. So maybe I need to consider coming back to my neck of the wood." I don't know. So it's an all day, and then after that, we have a networking event. And then if anybody who wants a personal one-on-one will stay until Sunday, just to connect with them and share with them if they have any additional questions. Yeah. But it's a huge success for us, and we don't really have a lot of seats because we limited. What happened was we want to spend that time, because when you get so many people, you don't have the time to share with people. So we're limited to like 25 people on the bus, even though the bus can hold more. Yeah.
And the link I put up there, is that marketing, is that a dash or an underscore?
Marketing
Can you
dash.
go look at it? You can take a photo of it with your phone, but I wrote it up so.
Oh, I don't know.
Marketing.
I don't know. Let me see. I think it's a. I don't even know. I copied it and I sent you, but I don't even know.
Yeah, well, I copied it exactly, but I didn't know if it was.
Yes.
It looks like an underscore next to mark.
Is there gonna happen to be an opportunity zone department?
Yes, there are certain areas in Fresno. It's an opportunity zone. Certain, not all of it.
And yours happens to be one?
No, not on the projects we have. Okay, not on the projects we have, but. Hold on, let me see.
And where's the, I saw it once, there's a site.
It's underscore. It's underscore, yeah.
Is that the site where it has all the videos of the tour?
Yeah, the videos of the attendees and the information is actually free, okay, because it's sponsor. But we have to make sure that you're serious because we have so little seats available.
How do we get a hold of you?
How do you get phone me? There you go. Yeah, that's my information.
Any more questions for Kim? Kim, thank you for
Thank you,
sharing
Kim.
that. That was so awesome. That was great. Thank you so much. So, you can also, that is an underscore, so we know that. That's how you see there's a bunch of videos about the bus tour. The last one they had, June 8th, it's a Saturday, right?
June 8th is a Saturday.
And then the networking is the next day.
No, we have a dinner later. Okay, you can network for dinner
Afterwards.
afterward, and then you can stay the following day.
Just check things out on your own.
Yeah.